Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Be Well, Be Keto. Today I'm super excited to have Shawn Mynar on the show. Now I'm sure that you've heard about Shawn. She has the Fat Burning Female Project and she has a fantastic podcast, which is where I first found her, called the Keto for Women Show. If you haven't heard it, you need to go and check it out. So Shawn is a nutritional therapy practitioner, a restorative wellness practitioner, certified personal trainer, real food foodie, and a passionate health seeker. So let's go and hear Shawn's amazing story.
Welcome to the Be Well, Be Keto podcast, where we showcase ordinary people who have achieved extraordinary results. Your host is the high energy girl, Tracy Gluhite.
Give a woman a fish, feed her for a day. Teach a woman to fish, feed her for a lifetime. Teach a woman to teach a woman to fish, end world hunger. Have you ever wanted to help people improve their health journey? Have you thought about coaching people with a keto lifestyle? Would you like to become an integrative health coach? Well, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, or IIN as we call it, is the largest nutrition school in the country. And in 2011, I graduated from their program and became a health coach. It was completely awesome. We learned over 100 different dietary theories and talk about craziness and confusion. My wish for you is that we can lock arms and create a tribe of health coaches all around the country, all around the world to spread the keto message. If this resonates with you and you would like to look into this option deeper, please go to my blog at highenergygirl.com and click on the link to the right of the homepage. Here you can grab the curriculum guide and see if it inspires you. Since I care so much about my listeners, I negotiated the very best tuition rate for you at IIN. Either you can contact them directly and give them my name, or I will introduce you to a counselor so you can decide if this is a good fit for you and your career goals. Let me know how I can support you in this coaching career opportunity. Have you joined the Facebook group yet? I have a new Facebook group called High Energy Girls, and that is pretty much where I'm hanging out these days, and I would love to have you a part of the group. So head on over to High Energy Girls on Facebook. Hey, Shawn, thanks so much for coming on the show today, girl.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This will be fun.
Well, I'm excited to talk with you personally because I've heard so many of your episodes on your show and then your old show, and I've been a big fan. So I feel honored that you're actually talking to me today.
Yay! I'm excited to be here. This is great.
Well, for the fans that don't yet know you, I'm sure that maybe there might be one. Why don't you let them know a little bit about who Shawn Mynar is?
Yeah, so I am a holistic nutritionist. I live in Boulder, Colorado, although my nutrition practice is completely online. I teach women how to, approach a healthy ketogenic lifestyle that's safe and effective for the female body. I've kind of gotten into that realm because of my own personal experience, which I think is the case for a lot of us nutritionists or just people in this health industry. Something goes wrong for us and our health, and we search high and low for the thing that helps us. And then once we find that thing, it propels us to want to shout it from the rooftops, tell everybody we know, help as many people as we can. And that's kind of how I got into this keto space, and specifically keto for women, because I used a ketogenic diet to help me go from feeling the worst I have ever felt health-wise, just issue after issue, to feeling now the best I have ever felt in my whole life. And along the way, I realized, just looking into the keto community a little bit more and experimenting with my own body and my friends and even some clients too, that there are very much some differences between how a man can approach keto and how a woman can approach keto. And, of course, boils down to hormones. But, just doing this in my own health, my own world, and realizing some of those differences and how it can make you feel terrible if you approach it the wrong way, or make you feel amazing if you approach it the right way, really led me to want to dive into this further and kind of break through some of the, I mean, I hate to call it this, but I'm going to, some of the nonsense that is going on in the keto community, and it gets worse, I feel like, every day. So I'm still doing that. It's been over 2 years, almost 2.5 years now, of that being my focus, and I'm committed to it. So that's a little bit about me and what I'm doing here right now.
So, what health challenges did you experience leading you to this?
Yeah, well, it all started back in 2008 when I was diagnosed with my first autoimmune disease, which was ulcerative colitis. That was, for a while, it was just what it was. And I took the medications, I went to the doctor, I did what I needed to do. And then it just started to feel wrong. It just started to feel like there was more that I could be doing instead of needing to be on medication for the rest of my life, which was what the doctors told me. Mm-hmm. And that led into more paleo type approach. I was able to, really feel quite a bit better with my autoimmune disease, be able to go off the medication and feel really good. And then all of a sudden I was doing paleo, I was feeling really good. And then all of a sudden things started to fall apart again. And that was, now that I know, it was because of being exposed to toxic mold and having a gene that does not allow my body to detox when you are exposed to these kinds of, these kinds of issues. So that, again, super long story. It took years to figure that out and go through the process where I was feeling better. But that exposure to mold led me to all kinds of symptoms, just unexplained weight gain, the inability to sometimes even get out of bed because I was so tired. I remember quite often waking up, going to eat breakfast, and going right back to bed because I was so exhausted all the time, unable to work out. I had severe brain fog, couldn't remember words, couldn't even just think, just made it really hard to even work. So just all these things started falling into place. And at that time, I also was diagnosed with my second autoimmune disease, Hashimoto thyroiditis. So I was having issues with my thyroid as well. And obviously my immune system was on high alert. And again, finally found out that it was because all of this was because of this toxic mold exposure. I had been living in a basement that had been flooded, didn't get properly fixed, and was living in mold there. Then I moved to another house that held mold. It was kind of a mess. And once I had figured that out and was going through the protocol to help my body detox from this, that's when I realized that a ketogenic diet, because, I was a nutritionist, I knew about the keto space at that time, had never tried it myself, but knew about some of the benefits of it. And it really made sense to me that these things that I was experiencing, especially with the brain fog and the lack of energy, could really be helped by adopting a ketogenic diet. And that's when I made the transition over to that. And I was just at the time thinking it would be something I could do for a short period of time while I was going through this protocol. It's a very intense protocol to heal from biotoxin illness. I could do that to help. So I would feel a little bit better through the process. I didn't realize at the time that it would make me feel like that much better that quickly and really make that process a lot easier and smoother, and that I would be doing it now 2 years later because I just feel really good. And I think it's just a really healthy place for my body to be.
Mm-hmm. And you're so young. I mean, it's so interesting when I find these young people like yourself that experience autoimmune from a young age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in my 20s, I think, when that was diagnosed. But I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and we were all about the fat-free processed foods. I had a really stressful job at the time. There's just so many factors, I think, now that I look back to my life prior to being diagnosed with autoimmune disease, that make it like a kind of a no-brainer for me that would be the next step. Because I mean, I thought I was healthy at the time. I worked at a gym. I was very active, very fit, but I was also really stressed out. I was constantly dieting. So I was very much in this eat less, move more thing, and had been for years. So that's super stressful on the body. I wasn't providing my body with the appropriate nutrients for a long period of time. And I grew up without really doing that either, because it was just all about being fat free or eating quote unquote healthy packaged foods. It wasn't about eating real food, which is what I do now. But that wasn't a big thing in my life until recently, I guess, in the past 6-7 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I grew up, let's see, I was born in 65. So I grew up, I was in high school in the early 80s and ate the fat-free Entenmann's, fat-free snack walls.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
I lived off that stuff.
Yeah, bagels with no cream cheese, potatoes with no butter or sour cream.
It sounds so gross now.
I know it is. It's so funny because I used to white knuckle it, with my husband always jokes around because when he was first started dating me 30 years ago, I would order everything like no dressing on the salad, he calls it boneless, skinless, tasteless chicken.
It really is true.
That's awesome.
I don't eat that stuff anymore. Yeah, so I think, when you look back at that and how many of us grew up with that as our plate of food, you can kind of see how health issues of some sort, especially gut health issues, are going to be inevitable.
Oh, yeah, totally. When it was funny, I was just talking to somebody. I was with Dr. Anna Kabecka last night at the Silicon Valley Health Institute, and we were talking about that. So, but I want to ask you another question. You said you were born with a gene that didn't allow your body to detox well. What gene is that?
Yeah, so that is, oh gosh, now I'm blanking on the name. That's weird because it's like everything about I'll get it eventually. It'll come up to me. But what it is, there is 24% of the population that has this gene that makes your body incapable of just detoxing from these biotoxins. In some cases, it's the Lyme biotoxin, which creates Lyme disease, which I think a lot of us have heard about. Mold is another one, and then there's some lesser known ones too. But that is a pretty significant part of the population, I would say, that has this inability. And so obviously, I think we can all agree there are quite a few buildings, and it might not even be something you've ever considered, that are water damaged and do have mold in some form. It may be seen. It very often is unseen or in the vents, behind the tiles. Just it's scary to even think about. But when you combine that percentage of people that can't detox from that with the amount of buildings that have water damage, there's a lot of people, and I think a lot of them still don't even know it, that are dealing with this illness and keep going to the doctor, getting these false readings, keep being told they're fine and they just need to sleep more, they just need to be less stressed, XYZ, when really it's their environment that they haven't considered, that they are not looking at, and that's really causing their bodies to completely, it's kind of an inflammatory response, or not kind of, it is definitely an inflammatory response that your body just starts becoming inflamed to try to protect you from this toxin that it can't detox appropriately. So you just become really inflamed. And with that inflammation, your brain gets inflamed, which is why you have this brain fog. You often gain weight because of this inflammation. It's very much inflammatory weight. So it's a big deal. And I think not enough people are exploring that option. Every time I talk about it on my podcast or on my Instagram or anything like that, I get so many questions of people that are starting to think, oh, well, this little spot here in my bathroom, is that a big deal? Just really starting to consider it, which I think is great. I think the awareness is really important. But that back to that test, and again, I can't think of it right now, but it'll come to me. You would most likely need to get that test done from potentially someone that has worked in the mold Lyme field before it's a blood test. So it's often like a functional medicine practitioner or something like that. They can run that test for you.
Is it MTHFR?
No, it's not. That's another one of those wonderful genes I have. No, it's not that one. It starts with an H. I don't know why it's not coming to me, except that honestly, I haven't talked about this in a while, and it is something I'm super passionate about. It's just kind of, now it's taken such a back seat in my life, which at the time, and I think anybody who has been through a serious health issue at the time, you think you're never going to go back to normal life ever. And, now a few years out, it's like, wow, that really seems like a long time ago, which is a good thing. So, yeah.
Well, what did you do about that, Shawn? So you find out you have this mold exposure. You find out you have this gene that allows you to, or prohibits you from detoxifying correctly. What do you do about that?
Well, the first step is you have to get out of the exposure. So if that's your home, your place of work, whatever the case may be, you've got to get out of that. So you can either have it mitigated at your house and recorrected, which is an option. But honestly, often it's harder to do that than just to move, which is, I know, seems crazy, but there are a lot of cases where people have tried to get rid of it in their house and it still lingers, or, it's attached itself to their belongings and whatever. So a lot of times it's just easier to move, which is what I did. I moved several times and I got rid of all my belongings several times because mold spores attach to porous materials. So like your clothes, your bedding, your couch, your mattress, all of it, anything that's not a hard surface that can be cleaned, like just by wiping, has to be gone, because you can still be exposed just from that belonging. So I got rid of most of my belongings twice. And for me, it was just not even a question. All I cared about was getting back to feeling like myself as quickly as possible. So if that meant getting rid of my clothes and starting from scratch a few times, so be it. And again, like I said, now it seems like such a distant memory. I've actually been able to keep my belongings for several years now, so I feel good about that. And from there, you also have to find someone who deals with this. There are luckily more and more doctors, and they might be MDs, they might be naturopaths, functional medicine doctors, who are capable of treating this condition, because you do have to go through a pretty intense protocol that does involve, specific medications, specific supplements. You're testing your blood several times throughout the process, at least. I mean, there was a point there where I was getting my blood tested once a month to see how it was going, to see if I was heading in the right direction, how these medications and supplements were working for me. So it is quite a lengthy process. It's not something that you can do on your own, for sure. You have to go to a professional and someone, hopefully, that has been trained correctly. There's a specific protocol, a specific method that an actual medical doctor came up with a long time ago to treat these biotoxin illnesses. And it's called the Shoemaker Protocol. So there are quite a few doctors now who have gone through his training in order to be able to do this with their patients. So you can find, hopefully, someone who, in your area who's able to help you.
That is great advice. That is really good, because I know that mold toxicity is a really serious, I've heard from several people that have had a lot of issues with that. So
yeah, it's no joke. And, again, there's 75% of the population who may not feel good when they realize they've been living in a moldy home or whatever, but they take the time, maybe take some charcoal or some sort of binder like that to detox, and they can detox. Their body is capable of doing that. So there's a difference, too, where some people, they feel sneezy or have runny nose, watery eyes when they're around mold, like kind of a mold allergy. And again, they remove themselves from the situation and they're fine. However, with this case, it's not an allergy. It's legitimately your body can't let go of that and sees it as this foreign invader. So everything just kind of ramps up, and that doesn't go away without you. If you just leave the building, you have to actually work to clear your body of that.
Oh, okay. So once you leave, you still have work to do.
Yes, exactly. So that's the first step, so that, because if you're still living in the same place but going through this protocol to detox, it's not going to do anything, obviously, because you're still being exposed. Yeah. So while that's the first step and by far the most important step, it's just the beginning for a lot of people.
So with your autoimmune, did you do any food sensitivity testing as well?
Yeah, with my autoimmune, that's like a whole different line item of things I've tried. So I was AIP, autoimmune paleo protocol, for over a year combined. I did about 8 months, then reintroduced foods. Then I started to have a flare again, and then went back to it, the autoimmune protocol. And I have to say, it helped. It didn't cure anything or cause it to go into remission. It helped, but it was so stressful and so isolating. I couldn't even go out to eat with my friends anymore. It was just a really hard time for me to go through that it wasn't, I'm glad I did it. I wouldn't have done it as long. And I don't know that the stress of feeling so isolated was really worth it. I guess I could say that. So besides going paleo and seeing a lot of improvement, doing the AIP, seeing a little bit more improvement for a short period of time, I didn't have to do anything else, because once I got this mold situation under control, and I really, really worked at the same time to significantly reduce my stress levels, once I got that all under control, both of my autoimmune diseases went into remission.
Oh,
So
wow.
I have for other reasons done food sensitivity testing, and I think I do it in my classes right now too. So I do think there's a lot of merit to it, and a lot of people see some great results, and I did as well. But it wasn't for my autoimmune disease specifically. It's just, other things like random skin issues or fatigue after eating certain meals. When you get a little curious, like, does this food actually work for me or not? Because I'm feeling like it doesn't, kind of thing. So I've done that a few times, but yeah.
Awesome. So once you went keto, we're finally here.
Yay, keto.
How did that make your life better? Like, talk about when you first got started on it, from your AIP paleo days to the keto, and what changes did you notice?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing I need to say before I get into that, which is one of the big things that I teach in my world, is when I approached keto, it was from the place of wanting to get truly 100% healthy again. All I cared about was my health. I didn't care anymore about what I looked like, wanting to lose the weight I had gained. I just wanted to feel better. Like, I wanted to have enough energy to go for a hike or go out with my friends and have some dinner. I just couldn't do anything. I wasn't living my life at all at that point because I was feeling so sick. So I was able to put what I wanted my body to look like to the side. I did not approach it as a diet. I did not care that everyone else doing keto was losing 30 pounds in a month, blah, blah, blah. I didn't care about that. I wanted to use it for its healing properties. And I think when approaching it from that aspect made it a very different story for me, because I was all about eating the most nutrient-dense foods, making sure I was fueling my body appropriately, getting tons of vegetables, getting enough food, eating 3 meals a day at least, and just really focusing more so on switching over the macros just a little bit. I didn't track or anything like that. I just increased my fat intake and lowered my carbohydrate intake. So instead of having a sweet potato every day, I was having veggies and salads and carrots and things like that instead. So I approached it from a really mindful place, I think, which is missing for a lot of people in the keto community. They want that quick fix still, or they see that everyone has these amazing weight loss stories, and so they strive for that. And it can be super harmful to almost make you worse than when you started as far as your health goes. So that's the first thing that I wanted to say, is just, how you approach it is very different. So when I approach it in that way from this health standpoint, I mean, it was almost instantaneous. And because I was at such a low point and had been for so long, any change was very noticeable. The change in my energy, just being able to go for a walk, go a little bit longer in my walks, not have to go to bed right after breakfast. Those simple changes to where I could actually live my life was huge. The brain fog lifted within a few weeks too, and I was able to think clearer than I had been in years. And, if you haven't ever experienced brain fog, it's the hardest thing to describe until you actually have been through it. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is what it feels like. So it's like you have this veil over your brain and it just cannot think or see anything clearly. And that was lifted. So I had these really amazing just updates to my health really quickly. And then from there, as I approached it in the same way for a longer period of time, things started to fall into place. I started to have the energy to work out, to go on hikes. My weight did start to move very, very slowly. I let it just continue to move very, very slowly. Didn't start trying to lose weight any faster or any harder, nothing like that. And I just kind of let it all happen. So there were so many things, a lot of which happened along the way. There's a few, and I think this is the case too for a lot of people who try keto, and especially if you approach it from this healthy place, you notice a few things at the beginning, but then it's the longer you do it, the more you notice. It's definitely like this progressive thing where we can't really be looking for a quick fix, because when you do that and you don't see what you're expecting, then you get frustrated and leave the scene. But if you know that the longer you go, the more things you're going to experience, the better you're going to feel. It makes such a big difference, and everything really does start to fall into place. But like I said, it's been 2.5 years now, and I would say I was completely healed, feeling better than I ever had after about maybe a year and like 8 or 9 months. So it took a long time. In the grand scheme of things, no, and totally worth it. But when you're looking every day to see if you feel better or look different or whatever, then it does seem like a long time. But, it really, to truly get the benefits and to really actually heal your body, it does often take a lot longer.
And, I love what you said about when you started this at the beginning, that you weren't coming to it for weight loss, because I find that some people think, keto is just this fad diet, right?
Yes.
And I really, my focus is on highlighting the health benefits, because just like with any other diet, so many women, they get started on it and then they quote unquote fall off the wagon and they go right back to so I always like to say, this is a lasting lifestyle change. This isn't this quick fix, but this is a way that you can actually age in health instead of sickness, and, heal your body from the inside out.
Right.
But don't feel like you need to have these quick results and, base your experience off of somebody else's experience. Yeah.
And it really frustrates me, because those people, then they will either, like you said, quote unquote, fall off the wagon. They'll think it's not working, or it's not the right thing. They're doing something wrong. They get frustrated. They get confused. There's all this negative emotion attached after the first few weeks even of being keto, when they're not dropping pounds as quickly as their neighbor is, or, they're not feeling any more energy and whatever they're kind of hoping for. When that doesn't happen quickly, then they just give up. And they get in this negative headspace about it too. Whereas if you just continue on and continue to use that as information about your body, see what you need to tweak, maybe there's something that you could change to make it the right approach for you. And then you do see those benefits, but it often does take so much longer. It's just, gosh, we're all in such a quick fix, need the results right now or forget it mode these days with everything. And diet obviously is no exception, that a lot of people are missing out on what could be an amazing, healthy lifestyle change for them, because they couldn't wait it out any longer, which is sad.
Yeah. And it's you didn't get this way overnight. So how do you expect to get out of this way overnight?
Right, exactly. I mean, if you think back to how much damage you've done, and I'm the same way when I think about all the years of damage I had done to myself prior to, finding this real food lifestyle, I can expect it to take quite a few years to get back to it. So you just have to have a little bit of patience. And when you find that patience and you find that grace for your body and realize how much it's doing for you, and more importantly, I always have to remind my ladies of this. Your body wants to be healthy and balanced and well and at its natural healthy weight more than you do, just as much as you, right? That's where it feels best. That is the goal of your body. So, fighting against it and trying all these things and being mad when it doesn't change, that's not healthy. That's not going to help you balance your body out. But if you work with your body and use those signs that it's giving you, and just every day check in with your body, see how it's doing, see what needs to change, mix some things up if you need to mix things up, then it's when you work cohesively with your body instead of against it, that's when things really can change.
Mm-hmm. And you're also you're not increasing your cortisol levels by stressing out about every little thing.
Right. I mean, gosh, it's amazing how many people are like, I'm not stressed. I just don't know why my diet's not working and what's going on. And I don't know what to eat. I'm feeling frustrated. It's like, well, yeah, you are stressed then. The way you feel about your diet right now is your stress. So you may not think the rest of your life is stressful at all, but just the way you're thinking about your diet right now, that's causing you a lot of emotional stress because it's so funny whenever any female, well, probably men too, but I work with females, whenever they have some sort of imbalance or they feel like things aren't going well, something's not working, my first response is, what's your stress like? Because that is so important to whether things do or don't connect for us in our health. And so that's always the first thing that I go to, because, it's not just about the food on your plate. And if the food on your plate is making you stressed out, well, there you go. Now we have a double situation.
Yeah, totally. Totally. That's a good thing what you said. It's not just the food on your plate. It's the way you're feeding yourself in every other aspect of your life that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I'm finding out more and more as a nutritionist how much more I need to talk about things other than food in order to actually get the point across as to how we can become truly healthy, happy women. Yes, your nutrition, the food you're putting on your plate, it's a big part, but there are so many other aspects to that. And now I'm kind of getting into the mindset piece of this because I have so many women who go through all the testing. They know how their gut's doing. They know their food sensitivities. They know their hormones. They know their stress levels and how their cortisol is doing. They have this perfect plate of food every single day, and they're still not getting results. And it's like, well, what's going on in your head? Because that's just important too.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
So going down a different trail here, why do you think that keto for women and keto for men are different? And what recommendations do you have to the female listeners to make it healthier for them?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest difference, like I mentioned, is because of our hormones. And really what that boils down to is just that we as women, and it's been studied, we handle stress differently than men. Men can take some stressors, they deal with it, they move on, and we don't as women, as females. And the change in how we perceive stress also means down the road that affects our hormones too. So there's very much a cascade that happens. It starts with your adrenals and your cortisol when they get called in more frequently than they should or than they're, built to do. And we have these stress responses that take place. That takes precedence over your body thinking that it needs to keep your hormones completely balanced and in check, ready to make and create another life, right? So through your menstrual cycle. So progesterone and estrogen kind of take a back seat. They don't get the priority anymore because right now we're dealing with this incoming stress. And then, of course, as most of us can kind of relate, we always have incoming stress. There's always something going on that's keeping our fight or flight mode on way more than it should. So we're always prioritizing this cortisol response and putting that estrogen and progesterone on the back burner. So we notice these changes in our hormones. And then the hormones, of course, those are essential just for us feeling like ourselves every single day of every single month, whether you are cycling or menopausal or postmenopausal, it doesn't matter. Our hormones are dictating how we feel. So we really need to keep, and I call it like this dance that estrogen and progesterone do with each other every day of every month of every cycle. We need to keep that as balanced and, part of this dance that they do. It needs to be a pretty specific thing. And then when that goes awry and one's dancing more than the other or vice versa, we have dysfunction. We have hormonal dysfunction and hormonal imbalance, and that leads to us feeling like crap. So how this relates to keto, I think that keto, when approached from an unhealthy place, I guess I'll say, or an unbalanced place, or a regimented place, maybe a really strict place, can be a stressor on your body. I mean, there's really no way around it. You're teaching your body how to use a totally different metabolic process. And in that process, you're going to encounter some stress. But when it's approached from this healthy place where you're making sure to nourish your body appropriately, you're not starting to fast right away, skipping your breakfast and then your lunch and trying to fast a whole day, which I see quite often in this keto community. But you're making sure to eat a nice balanced plate of food 3 times a day with lots of vegetables. So you're getting your nutrients in, those micronutrients that you need to thrive properly as well. That makes a huge difference. So that's the first big thing that I see for women is we do approach it as a diet. And when we do so, like we've done with all the diets in the past that we've tried, we try to lower our calorie intake. We try to eat less. Again, fasting is big in the keto community. So we try all this stuff, and that's really stressful on your body. That is really stressful. It's terrible for your metabolism also. That's another story. And with that, it's like, can you really add one more stress to your life? Often the answer is no. So now we've taken our diet and made that a stressor, and your body just can't handle it, and it tanks. You don't feel good. You start having even more fatigue or menstrual issues. The list goes on and I think there are probably some people listening who are like, oh, that might have been how I approached it. And then I started feeling not so good. And a lot of times with keto, it's like they'll feel great for 3-4 weeks and then they'll tank. And they won't know how to get back to feeling as good as they felt. And I often have to say you need to backtrack and restart keto with this new non-restrictive approach and see how that goes, because you just stress your body out way too much, right? And a lot of times this is kind of part 2, I guess, to this question with keto. And especially if someone's, not super well versed on what it actually means or how it looks, they just take out the carbs. So you go from eating all the carbs like a normal thing to then Monday morning, you're starting the keto diet and you take out all the carbs, 0 carbs. And when you do that, that's also, again, super stressful on the body, but you're not replacing those carbohydrates with any sort of anything. So it should be fat, obviously, but you're not doing that often because we still have this fat fear or fat phobia going on deep in our head, even though we don't think we do. There's a lot of that still going on. So you're afraid to increase the fat as much as you need to start producing ketones. So you get into this place of what I call low carb purgatory, which is where you're not eating any carbs anymore. So you're not providing the glucose that your body is used to using as fuel. That's how most of us have been for most of our lives. So you're not providing the glucose as fuel, but then you're also not doing enough to start producing ketones again. So you haven't really had that trigger point to where it's like, oh, I have enough fatty acids to start producing ketones. I'm just going to do that. That's now going to be my source of fuel. Your body hasn't done that yet. So now you're in this place of no energy. Your body doesn't know what to do, where to pull its energy from. And that is a huge stressor on the body. So I see that a lot in women as well who they're just going to try the keto diet and they reduce their carbs significantly, don't bump their fat up enough to be truly ketogenic. And then we're in low carb purgatory, which is also really stressful. So it's really just thinking about all the things that could make this diet change, which is really a metabolic change, a stressor. Eating less food, not eating enough food for your body to sustain the energy that it needs and the nutrients that it needs. Moving into it too quickly, which is another one I didn't touch on, but huge. I really find a benefit in women taking this change in increments, going through the process for 3 to 4 weeks instead of trying to do it all in one day makes a huge, huge difference. It's a lot more gentle of an approach. And then not truly getting into a ketogenic state and just being in this low carb purgatory. Those are all huge stressors on the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like I really like what you said about they ditch the carbs, but they don't boost up their fat. And so then they're just kind of suffering in silence there, Yeah,
they're thinking, oh, I'm doing keto and I'm feeling like crap. And it's like, no, you're not actually in ketosis. That's the problem there.
Yeah. That's really true. And then, so when you said about, people are stressing out about all the details of keto. So do you recommend tracking or do you recommend not tracking so that they can avoid the stress of it? Or where are you with that?
I think it's a slippery slope. So I would say if you can go into the tracking mode, knowing that it's going to be for a short period of time, maybe 3 to 4 weeks, where you're going to just try to figure out what that plate of food looks like. So what does it look like when I'm eating a ketogenic diet? And I understand for a lot of people, it's so out of anything they've ever any plate of food they've ever built that it's, hard. So I get that needing to see what that looks like on your plate is necessary. And that's where I think keto, tracking your macros could be a good, useful tool at the beginning. What happens though is it becomes obsessive and in a crazy, crazy way where people, are pulling out their phones in the middle of their date with their husband, tracking their food. And it's like, no, don't. No, this isn't your life. That's not how food should be, no matter what. I never, ever, ever want food to be a number or a calculation or a percentage or anything. And you've gone too far when you can just look at an avocado and know the percentages of things, right? So don't get to that point, because then we're losing the point of food. We're losing the meaning of food, which is nourishment. It's providing nourishment for our bodies. And it's also pleasure. We get pleasure out of eating food. So you're taking all of that out when you are obsessed with tracking your macros. Instead, use it for a few weeks if you need to. Look at your plate of food. Look at how that looks. And then from there, take off the app from your phone, just delete it entirely, and just use your eyes to gauge how this plate of food would look if it were a keto plate, and build that. You don't have to be so obsessive with it. I think that's another huge stressor. And I know a lot of people say it makes them less stressed to know, but it's just not the right way to live. That's not how we're meant to approach food and nourishment in our meals. So let's get back to what it actually means to have a meal in front of us.
Yeah, totally. And I believe that different people thrive different ways. Like for me, tracking is just like too much stress.
Yeah.
But some people thrive on it, and so they have to be mindful of what their experience of it is as well.
Yeah, I think the people that thrive on it they haven't tried another way. They're afraid. I think there's a little bit of fear involved in I'm not going to know what I'm eating, and that makes stress for them, I think, to have that fear with not knowing. But I would say still to those people, just give it a try. And this is coming from someone, I used to have little notebooks and I would write down my food and the calories this was obviously before we had apps, the food and the calories and fat and protein and carbs of every single meal that I had. And I was obsessed with tracking my food. But just when you don't have to do that and you can just use your intuition, use your eyes, see what sounds good, see what feels good. Let every day be different. And that's another huge, huge point that I want to mention about tracking your food is when you track your food, you're putting in that every day you're going to have XYZ fats, XYZ proteins, XYZ carbs, and your calories are going to be a certain level too. So you're having all that set every single day. And there is not one day of my entire life that has been exactly the same. So why would we eat exactly the same things in the exact same ratio? Like maybe you slept good or bad. Maybe you had a really hard workout that day. Maybe you were super lazy and didn't even get off the couch that day. Maybe you're stressed. Maybe you have a lot on your plate and you're thinking a lot. All of this takes different levels of energy. So why are we eating the same exact thing every day? That makes no sense to me when you actually think about it. Again, coming from someone who ate the same thing every day for years. So when you can actually take a step back and start kind of tapping into your own body and your own life and building those plates of food based on what sounds good and what you know is right for your nutrition level that you need that day, it's like a whole new world. And I can tell you, being on both sides, it is so much better. It is so freeing to feel that way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree with that. It's like I've been on every single diet that's ever been imaginable. And I believe also that the higher levels of fat give us just so much of a better mental perspective. And, it just feeds those hormones and makes them happier. Right. So, yeah, I'm with you on that one for sure.
Yeah, just focus on that stuff and not trying to get your macros absolutely perfect every single day, because it's just not fun. I mean, there's just so much more to life than that.
And I've been studying under a Chinese medicine doctor, and he says that in the wintertime, like I did this extended fast for 3 days just because somebody challenged me to do it, and I wanted to see if I could, He's like, oh, it's not good to do in the winter. He said, your body is holding on for energy purposes, and he said that is not a good thing to do in the winter.
Yeah, it really is. Like, there's so much more to it than just, I'm just going to pick these 3 days and fast. Like, you really have to take into account, obviously, the season, which I totally agree with, how you're feeling, what you have going on those days, what stage of your cycle you're in. I mean, there's a lot to consider instead of just like, oh, I'm just not going to eat. And that's, one of the downsides of fasting. I do think there are a lot of pluses to fasting for the right person at the right time. And if it's truly necessary, but you have a lot more to consider than, and even, I mean, just in everything that we're doing, even just going keto, what foods to not eat and to eat. All of that, we just have to tap in a little bit more into ourselves, and it makes everything so much clearer.
Yeah. That's very, very true. So Shawn, what's up? What's next for you in like the world of keto space, and what projects do you have going on?
Yeah, well, I'm approaching 100 episodes of the Keto for Women show, so just planning for the next 100 episodes, I guess. I'll be doing that over the next few weeks, and really excited to continue my journey there and just teaching about women's health, all the things. So yes, it is Keto for Women, but we talk about things other than keto, which I love to do. And other than that, Fat Burning Female Project is my women's group class that will be going up again in July for another round of that, and having some women go through the course. So that's always fun. And like I mentioned, just kind of a little secret, I guess, that I haven't really talked about, but I have mentioned my passion in the mindset piece of all of this and how to actually break free from this diet mentality that we have in order to actually get our bodies balanced and healthy and happy, which means we actually will then lose weight instead of going on this diet roller coaster. So I'm going to look into teaching more about that and doing so hopefully in an online course platform so I can help as many women as possible.
Yeah, I think it all starts there, my dear. All starts there. So that's a good job. And how can people find you, Shawn?
My website, ShawnMynar.com, has pretty much all the things that I just mentioned. Keto for Women show, you can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can catch up on all the old ones or just listen to the new ones, either way. And over on Instagram, I'm Shawn Mynar. I'm pretty active over there. I love to chat with people on that platform. And then Facebook at Shawn Mynar Health.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and we will have links to all of those sites on the show notes page so that people can simply and easily find you. Oh, last question I forgot to ask you earlier. What is your favorite keto meal?
Ooh, my favorite keto meal right now, I would say, is like a coconut curry.
Ooh.
I had this amazing coconut curry twice, actually, when I was in Hawaii just a few months ago. And now I've just been like dreaming about it ever since. It's like coconut cream based and then a bunch of veggies, some broth, any sort of meat, really. I had both of those times were seafood and it was just incredible. But now it's just like my palate is craving it. It's like such a good season for it. Still kind of chilly, and just to have a warm curry. Oh, so good.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Do you just eat it plain or do you put it over like cauliflower rice or anything?
Yeah, cauli rice for sure. So
awesome.
Good.
Hey, have you ever taken radishes and tried to make them like roasted potatoes or anything?
Yes. Yeah, I often will roast radishes. It's one of my favorite things, actually. Right now, I've been making a lot of stews and soups, and I put the radish into the stew or soup in my Instant Pot. And it also gives the like potato-like consistency too.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a really good idea. Yep. I didn't think about that one. Okay, I'm going to try that. Do you peel them or just throw them in whole?
I'll like just slice them. I just like kind of chop them up a little bit and put them in. Yeah, I don't even peel them. And it's so interesting when you cook radishes, it takes out the bitter flavor. It tastes like a whole different thing.
Yeah. I've made it with
great.
like onions and garlic and like, oregano and made like a roasted potato type dish. But I love that idea to put them in a stew because I actually am going to make one. So.
Yep, you can do radish or turnips. There's the same thing, and they taste really good. They really give like that potato feeling for sure.
Oh, cool. Well, I just love talking to you so much, and I appreciate you coming on the show, taking time out of your busy schedule, and you're just amazing. So just thank you for being a leader for women in our community.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Tracy. This was really fun. I was glad to connect with you finally, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, sweetie. Wow, I felt like I had shivers talking to this rock star in the keto world. She is so amazing. So I hope you enjoyed our conversation and learned a bunch and were inspired by the way Shawn was actually able to heal her own body. So thank you so much for listening. Go out and make it an amazing day. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion and I could be wrong.